Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is surrounding translation, and you may have noticed I've also uploaded a Valorant montage too, so I'll be using clips from there to showcase as examples throughout. Now this topic itself is kinda huge. So translation itself is basically asking the question, does aim training even work? Or is it even worth it? And the answers to both of these are actually kinda dubious, but overall I still think the process is extremely beneficial from a pushing yourself perspective. Let me explain. For the question, does aim training even work? The answer is yes, but your method or aiming behavior has to match what you do in the FPS too. If we look into some Valorant clips, you can see I have a very reactive nature, so when I see an enemy, I'm trying to eliminate them as fast as I can. If I put myself into an aim training environment instead and load up a task like 6-shot, suddenly I have all the time in the world, and typically a lot of players will then start taking their time to land these shots, and straight away we're already at a behaviour mismatch. Chances are if you were to reactively aim in 6-shot like you would in the FPS game, in here too you will start missing. This in itself isn't bad, it can help you understand where your weaker areas are to improve on. But in this training method, which is one I like to use for gradual improvement, the maximum translation will only occur when you start to exhibit the same speeds in the aim trainer as you do in the game you like to play. You will have minor gains during the process, where you nurture a certain flick direction or just develop your control further in general. For the second question, is it even worth it? Well, this is the one that's often argued quite a lot of the time. In games that don't have single shot kills, then absolutely. You can train reactive, tracking, static, and you're going to be improving a variety of skills, all that are needed to perform better in those games. In games that do have single shot kills, thinking like Valorant here with the Vandal or something similar, then there is potential that there is a lot less translation, depending on how you play. The reason for this is because not many plays do actually feature aim in Valorant. The crosshair is pointing mostly towards where the enemies will be, so in hold scenarios, you're testing reactions and crosshair placement, maybe with a minor adjustment. This placement itself is a fundamental for Valorant, and you can improve these in-game fundamentals much more than you can with training your aim, so if you're looking to get better. With fundamentals alone, you can reach Immortal Radiant with just adequate aim. So this is why a lot of people suggest to place most of your intention into the game itself. However, that's not to say you aren't doing something extremely inefficient with how you do aim, so there always is that improvement. And of course, don't forget my argument where if you don't push yourself, you don't actually improve. And you will already have heard me saying that a lot of people stopped improving their aim a long time ago because of this. So, how can we go about maximizing our translation? The clue really does lie within that first question we answered. The behavior absolutely has to be changed. Where you choose to do this is up to you. I found it was easier to train in my aim trainers and keep my game environment just as it was, so I wasn't messing around with my performance in any way. So I did this for things like higher sensitivity training too, so I wouldn't have take the performance hit in the game. So even though a lot of pros do say to smooth aim in games, I chose to keep the snappy behaviour instead and work towards making this more consistent in the aim trainer. Which, of course, has been an uphill battle. I've been trying my fast flicks in 6-shot and it is not there yet. So I've gone the other way around now and started to smooth everything, and my Valorant is looking a hell of a lot more cleaner in terms of going for headshots instead of crouch spray and committing to everything, because that's all I felt capable of doing. Now, I don't think I suffer in this department at all, really. I'm fairly good at hitting flick shots, and I have a lot of practice and clips to back that up. However, as we discussed, this does not make good gameplay in any way, shape or form. In fact, it shows how bad my fundamentals are here in terms of awareness, positioning, and character movement, just because I was surprised from the angles I was exposed to. I then had to aim. You could argue these are the situations though where aim does pay off, as opposed to just holding an angle. But there's also another area that aim training does affect in gaming too, and this one is huge. Aiming while moving. If I ask you to watch back some of your death clips, I can almost guarantee you that over half of them will be you dying while you were moving. Whether it was covering some ground for a retake while walking, or just generally moving outwards or peeking, or even in other games where you're strafing and maintaining your shooting, it's usually always relative to your own character movement. These are cases where you do get outgunned while you're stood still or hiding, but they're so small in comparison. The reason I'm mentioning this is because it's incredibly easy to lose control of the position of your crosshair. If you're moving round a corner, if your aim moves up or down slightly, you absolutely have to know where your crosshair is before you can make any motion. It's fine that you can see an enemy, but without knowing the exact starting location of your aim, you cannot assess what movement to make with your mouse, so pay very close attention to that. This is why we see a lot of players not moving their aim at all and just use the movement keys, and only when their character stops do they then aim. Now again, you've heard me say that tracking is the best aim training you can do for your aim, and I say that literally because of the translation it holds, and that's because of the point we've just mentioned. When your character is moving, this is the tracking, but in reverse. Your aim in motion is relative to the acceleration and speeds of your character, and the most difficult part of this is when you first move and when you're slowing down to a stop. With well-rounded aim training, so tracking, static, practice with shooting kinetic targets and tracking the kinetic targets, you'll learn to assess these mouse movements much easier. Of course, there is an alternative, which is basically just use no aim at all. And again, this is extremely viable with good crosshair placement and knowledge of the enemy position. So another point which can go against aim training. Some people just use their movement keys to swing out, then once their character is stopped or is slowing down, then they will make the aim in motion. This features much more of your static ability where you are stood still like in an aim trainer and you're just making that one flick. However, you do have to wait till your character has stopped moving, so it's not the most efficient way to aim in terms of speed and getting the job done. Now, the reason I've mentioned all of this stuff is basically because depending on how you play individually and aim, it can also delay when or where you're going to see more of this translation. And of course, while this video isn't specifically a Valorant improvement guide, and also apologies for using that example a lot, as I know people here might be playing Battle Royale games, all I'm interested about is the aiming side specifically. And watching this clip back here, I can see immediately and predictively aiming here, which is a personal weakness of mine with aiming at kinetic targets. Also on this last note, I realised I hadn't included some material for the aim training routines, so I wanted to touch on when you should be training and for how long. This isn't what I do personally though, because I enjoy my aim improvement side, but ideally you should be playing your FPS game first and then finishing off with the aim training before you go to sleep. Reasons are to allow you to shape to your game behaviour, and hopefully you will retain that as much as possible as an approach for when you go to aim train, and with that coming just before your sleep, it's more beneficial for your nervous system to rebuild. Now, the time does genuinely change from person to person, so this one's honestly what you feel capable of doing, and it's similar to just like revising for an exam. You want to be training so long as you are trying new things and just improving in general, or consolidating your current aim. Some people advise 30 minutes, some up to an hour. I myself have gone 8 hours in one day when I was very passionate about fixing mistakes I built up in my aim, but I cannot say they were all that effective, though I will broken some barriers, I'm sure. It's also important to note that it's recommended to take regular breaks. So guys, that just about covers it for translation really. Depending on the enemy movement in the game you like to play, then you should be looking to replicate those environments into your aim training, but specifically with how you aim or what you want to improve towards. I still believe, however, whatever the task is, this is still good for your overall control improvement, whether it's required in the game or not. I believe all aiming abilities and skills complement each other, and so when you finally understand how to fix or improve on weaker areas, the improvements can actually be drastic. So thanks for watching guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.